Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. So Scholz is going to China, possibly next week, and already you can see the knives are out. The Europeans are saying he's a backstabber. He recently had a spat with Macron. Macron was very angry at him for changing his tune on China. The Americans are absolutely shitting on this guy, like CNN, Fox News, calling him an absolute traitor and a coward. And the British are saying he's basically being warned that if he goes on this trip to China, that the EU, the British, and the Americans are not going to be happy, and there could be regime change if he goes ahead with it. So what gives? What's going on here? Why is he suddenly being nice to China? I mean, just like a few weeks ago, you had Burback sending, threatening with nuclear weapons. She was sending a delegation to Taiwan, and you have Habeck saying the naivety towards China is over, and he was really coming down on China, saying there needs to be a new trade policy. We need to treat China the same way we treat Russia. So what the hell is going on? I mean, why Scholz suddenly changed? So I'll tell you what's changed. The Nordstream 2 pipeline. So if you remember, the Nordstream 2 pipeline happened, blew up just a few weeks ago. And before that, Germans were all in on it, were against Russia. They were completely in on it against China. They're 100% with the EU, 100% behind the Americans. And suddenly everything went quiet. And I'm pretty sure that behind the scenes, the Germans know exactly who did this, and they are pretty shocked about it. And they have realized, or a couple of people have realized within the German government, that we are being had, guys. We need to make a new stance. We need to do something because the Americans are completely destroying our economy, and we need to start looking out for ourselves. And I believe there's a lot of opposition to what Scholz is doing, especially coming from the Greens. And I think the Greens are especially angry with Scholz because I don't see any of them making any statements about this. They're unusually quiet. So there's other things that's happened over the past week or so as well. So I'm just thinking it's awfully strange. It's almost like Germany was going one direction and now they've hit a complete 180. For example, I'm seeing. So Germany recently, over the past day or two, has allowed China's Costco to go into the Hamburg port. And obviously there's a lot of protests about it from the German government. And, Scholz has gone as far as saying that Europeans should allow Chinese investment into their ports as well. And you can see here, the German cabinet allowed China's Costco to buy a stake in the terminal country's largest port on Wednesday in a decision pushed through by Chancellor Olaf Scholz that triggered unprecedented protests within the governing coalition. With the support of Olaf Scholz's Social Democrat-led ministries, the cabinet approved a 24.9% stake in investment in Costco in one of the logistics firms, FGN.de, 3 terminals in the Hamburg port. So this is a really big deal. This is an absolute big deal. 6 months ago, even 3 months ago, this would be completely unheard of as well. But there's other stories as well. And you hear this as well. Germany to push ahead with Chinese takeover of chips plant. German spy chief has warned that China buys into strategic industries in order to exert pressure. So you can see Germans allowing Chinese companies to go into their ports. They're allowing Chinese companies to go into chips as well. And it seems awfully strange. And obviously, Olaf Scholz is doing this before his trip into China. So he can sit with President Xi and say, look, I've done this, I've done this. and let's work out some partnerships. He did exactly the same thing when he went to Saudi Arabia. A lot of people don't realize that Germans had arms embargo against Saudi Arabia. So he cancelled the arms embargo and he's allowed German arms sales into Saudi Arabia just before his trip to Saudi Arabia. Unfortunately, he didn't really get much in return, but that's not the point. I think the point is to start building up a brand new relationship with Saudi Arabia, and now he looks like he's doing the same thing with China as well. So it's one of those things you show you're serious about a partnership, and you would put some sweeteners in before your meeting. Same way you would buy a girl some flowers before you take her out on a date, for example. I'm just giving you an example. So there's other things in terms of the German businesses as well. There's a lot of stuff happening over the past few weeks, guys. This is huge news. So BMW has agreed to invest 10 billion yuan to expand its battery production in China. So that's not the big story. The big story is BMW is actually moving its plant from UK and investing in China instead. So they are looking like they are moving their stuff from Europe and moving on to China. And you can see currently BMW makes about 40,000 electric mini cars per year in the UK, although the company's Cowley factory based in the outskirts of Oxford has been rumoured to be axed. And they will be axed, guys, because I mean, these big car companies cannot run their factories in UK, in Europe, because of the huge gas, electricity prices are going through the roof. No company can. This is a start. BMW is moving their factories to China because energy is much cheaper there. And also Volkswagen, Mercedes are following as well. And there's articles such as this: why are German automakers like BMW, Volkswagen increasing investment in China? And this article tells you exactly why, because energy is so much more cheaper. And believe it or not, China's inflation is only around 2.5% compared to the rest of the world. So if you are a factory in the UK, for example, not only do you have to pay really high investments, you're going to have to pay high labor as well, labor costs. But also, they've increased their corporation tax to 25% from 19%. You also have to pay higher interest rates as well. So if you've got loans, you're going to have to pay higher interest rates. You're also going to have to pay higher energy costs as well. So as a business point of view, it doesn't make any sense having to run a business in the UK. I'm just giving UK as an example. So it makes sense to move your business away from UK and move to a country where things are much cheaper. In China, the inflation rate is still 2.5%. The taxes are pretty low. Energy costs are very, very low because most of the energy in China comes from renewables, and energy prices are pretty stable in China as well. So a lot of companies are moving there. So it just makes business sense, to be honest. And even business leaders are coming out and they are supporting China as well. You can see VW, Mercedes, and BMW. It says, obviously, this article is coming from Bloomberg, so they're not going to, say a good heading. But if you look at the actual description of it, you can see here, VW's Bloom will join a delegation led by Chancellor Olaf Scholz on their first trip to Beijing. So you can see it's not just Olaf Scholz going to Beijing, he's also the VW leader as well. So they asked him about the human rights record, especially about the treatment of Uyghurs in Xinjiang. And this is a VW statement. VW has carefully limited its comments about the region and what goes on inside the factory it shares with the state-run manufacturer SAIC. In a letter to the World Uyghur Congress, Bloom reiterated that VW doesn't mistreat any workers and that its presence in the region has a positive effect on the community and that it will stay put in Xinjiang. So as you can see, finally you have a business leader who's thinking with his head rather than his heart, and he's saying that they have done their own investigations in Xinjiang. They don't see anything wrong with it. And also the fact that they are providing a positive influence in the region in terms of providing jobs, providing better, living standards for the actual community, and helping the community thrive because they're providing jobs, helping the economy, local economy as well. And also the BMW CEO Oliver Zipse last week has went so far as to defend China's market policies and compare them favorably to how President Joe Biden's changing the playing field in the US. And you can see it's not just VW, it's also BMW CEOs also saying good things as well. And you can see here the 50-50% joint ventures that Beijing required foreign car makers to set up China were fair for everyone, Zipse said in an interview. And he warned that the Biden administration's climate law were designed to wean off US off battery materials sourced from China and could provoke a retaliatory steps and set off dangerous game of trade barriers. And you can see here with Biden's policies, especially with the Chip 4 policies and his infrastructure policies as well. Biden's policies are very, very pro-US companies and really bad for European companies, because what Biden is doing is changing his policies every single day. He's having this huge trade war with China, and you can see how the stock prices of US companies are basically going up and down, basically because of Biden's policies. For example, they didn't allow companies such as AMD to sell their chips to China, and their stocks have plummeted down, and we're talking a huge percentage went down because they are not allowed to sell these chips to China. And same things happening to all these companies because of their trade war. Companies are in the firing line, and their stocks are being affected because of Biden's policies. And also the energy prices, they are still low compared to Europe, but they are still high as well. The inflation is still high. So it's not really a good business environment to work in the United States. There seems to be too much politics involved at the moment. Then every day you are seeing stories such as this. BMW is doing just that, shifting production of electric mini hatchbacks to China from the UK and assembling an SUV model that is through its partnership with Great Wall Motor, which is a Chinese joint venture company. At Mercedes, well over half of ultra luxury and ultra profitable Maybach vehicles. The company stories such as this sells to customers in China, supporting its push further upmarket. Germans cannot bite the hand that one feeds them, said Matthias Schimpt, a Berlin-based auto analyst. So you can see things are very much changing. For all this talk about decoupling with China, well, the US has been talking about decoupling. The German businesses are not listening to that. There was a very much a false report that the US's main goal is to take these auto companies away from Germany, uh, basically by having such high energy costs in Germany. These auto companies are not going to survive. So the US is trying to poach them away from Germany and take them into the United States. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be working. It seems like these German companies are doubling down on their investments in China or moving their productions in China. So all of this stories about how German companies are moving to US is just all fake, because you just have got to look at not just these car companies, but also big German companies like BASF, who have just announced a factory in China, and they're moving all of their operations to China. And the gas prices and electricity prices in Germany is just so high, they cannot afford to operate in Germany or in Europe. So they're moving everything to China. So this is just a start, guys. You can see things change very quickly. A couple of weeks ago, before the Nordstream incident, none of these stories would have seen the light of day. But since the Nord Stream 2 pipeline has been blown up, I think the Germans, even though publicly they are not saying anything, they are not saying the US did it, privately they are talking amongst themselves and saying, you know what, guys, because of the US, we have destroyed our relationship with the Russians. We are deindustrializing because of the US. Let's not destroy our relationship with China. Let's salvage what we have with China. We do not want to completely deindustrialize. This is what the US's plan is. We cannot allow ourselves to be cold and hungry in the winter because of the US. So let's try and make amends with China, and let's try and build that relationship. Let's not destroy it. I think that's what's happening. That's all from me from today. Don't forget, guys, you can support my channel on Patreon, on Locals. Really appreciate the support you guys give. And also, if you cannot support me, you can welcome to buy me a coffee. Or if you cannot do that, you're welcome to just carry on liking, watching my content, sharing, commenting, whatever you do to help the algorithm. I really, really appreciate it. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for listening. Take care.